So previously we looked at how to calculate price elasticity of demand for a given increase or decrease in price. Notice the big difference in the coefficient values depending on whether the price is increasing or decreasing. To get an answer that is independent of the starting point or direction of change, we must use the midpoint formula, also known as the arc formula, which uses the average of the 2 points as the basis of the calculation. In this way, we always obtain the same answer, irrespective of the basis or direction of change. Taking a look at the arc formula, the full version of the formula is written as follows. So you've got quantity 2 minus quantity 1 divided by quantity 1 plus quantity 2, whose value is divided by 2. So the part that's been put in brackets is the average of the two quantities. Now we divide that by price P2 minus price P1, and that then is divided by, this part in brackets is the average of the two prices. So P1 plus P2 divided by 2. Now there's a shorter version of this where we simply ignore the divide by 2 part. As you can see, this is the version that is preferred by economists such as Ray Charles. So let's take a look at writing this down. So what we have is the following. Quantity 2 minus quantity 1 divided by quantity 1 plus quantity 2, and then that is divided by price 2 minus price 1, which is divided by price 1 plus price 2. Now, all that this means in plain, simple English is the following. We're looking at the difference between the two quantities, which is divided by the sum of the two quantities. This value is then divided by the result of the difference between the two prices, which has been divided by the sum of the two prices. Let's take a look at practice question 1. Using the arc formula, we're going to calculate the price elasticity of demand between the price of 20 Rand and 25 Rand. So we've got 2 points on the demand curve. So let's write down the formula first. So the difference between the two quantities is 80. So we get that from taking 200 minus 120. So that's the difference between the two quantities. The sum of the two quantities is 120 plus 200, which gives us 320. That result is going to be divided by the difference between the two prices, which is 5. So 25 Rand minus 20 Rand is 5. The sum of the two prices is 20 Rand plus 25 Rand, which of course is 45 Rand. So if we simplify these fractions, we don't have to do this. We get 1/4 divided by 1/9. But if you simply take 80 over 320, you would get 0.25. And that then is divided by, so 5 over 45 gives us a result of 0.11. And when you put that into your calculator, you get to a final result then of your price elasticity coefficient is equal to 2,27. So this elasticity coefficient is greater than 1. That means the demand for the product is elastic. Let's take a look at practice question 2. So the difference between the two prices is, let's start at the beginning. The difference between the two quantities is 20. The difference between the two quantities is 20. That's 100 minus 80. And that is divided by the sum of the two quantities, which is 100 plus 80, gives us 180. That then is divided by the difference between the two prices. So we've got 150 minus 100, which gives us 50. And that is divided by the sum of the two prices, which is 100 plus 150, gives us 250. Again, we can simplify the fractions. So it gives us 1/9 divided by 1/5. We don't have to do this part. We could have just taken 20 divided by 180, which gives us 0.11, and that is divided by 0.2, and the end result of that is that we have a price elasticity coefficient of 0.55. So remember that the fact that the coefficient value is less than 1 tells us that the demand for the product is inelastic. In a test or exam, you may be asked to interpret the coefficient value and make a recommendation on whether the firm should charge a high price or a low price in order to maximize the total revenue. Remember that if the price elasticity coefficient is greater than 1, then the demand for the product is elastic. So in this case, we would have the following. So if the price elasticity coefficient is greater than 1, then demand is elastic. If the firm decides to increase the price, then that will lead to a decrease in total revenue. On the other hand, if the firm decides to decrease the price, that will lead to an increase in total revenue. Taking a look at inelastic demand, so if the coefficient value is less than 1, we have inelastic demand. So what happens here is if the firm decides to increase the price, then total revenue will increase. If the firm decides to decrease the price, then total revenue will decrease. So it's important to note that in the case of elastic demand, we find that your price and total revenue will move in opposite directions. With elastic demand, price and total revenue will move in the same direction.